Like a pebble in my shoe, Ron, the social media issue, if there is one with George Pickens, like a pebble in my shoe, dealing with that is like breathing. It's easy, Tomlin says. And then it's like reality television, the way you guys follow social media and make stories of it. Paraphrasing him there.
What about his guys on social media? Isn't that a factor, what they say? I mean, what they do?
Well, yes.
Of course you're going to react
and there's
to
history
it.
with this. Let me take you back to October 25th, 2017.
Oh, we're going back in time here
Our friend
on the
Mark
Cook and
Cabali.
Joe.
Mark Cabali, the big boy.
The big boy.
Of course, everybody else was reporting this too. Mike Tomlin sitting Martavis Bryant over social media post. Okay, and this was Martavis saying lots of things, including suggesting he was better than Juju Smith, including requesting a trade, including saying he wants mine.
I want mines.
So that was the reason for benching Martavis Bryant for a nationally televised game against the Detroit Lions. So the idea that social media and how players behave on it and how that could affect a team is nothing more than a pebble in his shoe and no big deal, and I laugh at you guys for following this, just strikes me as ludicrous, honestly.
Right.
It is a big deal. It's how they communicate to the press. It's how they communicate their feelings to the world, and he has already suspended a significant player over such things.
He's always said it's their business until it involves my business, and you could argue that Pickens pouting to a degree after that game affects his business. He can try to minimize it all he wants.
Right.
And, I mean, he did say, they asked him, does Pickens express frustration to you? He goes, every day.
Yeah, and I get that part of it.
I mean, they all want the ball. But pebble in my shoe. The other thing that stood out for me, Joe, was that is the biggest defense of Kenny Pickett I've ever heard him give.
Yeah.
Almost like, I know he's being beaten up out there outside. I love him, and here's why. That is the biggest endorsement. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. We're going to for sure get to that one, yes.
Those two things are what stood out to me the most.
But as far as social media goes, you had Mike Mitchell in 2014 telling a fan something bad on Twitter. Tomlin banned him from social media. He had Antonio Brown. I mean, is the undercurrent here, hey, receivers are going to do what they do, and it's a pebble in my shoe? You had Antonio Brown. You had Martavis Bryant. You had Chase Claypool. I mean, are you kidding me with this? No, and I'm not making too big of a deal out of Pickens, don't get me wrong. But the idea that nobody should even look at this as anything or maybe a future sign of trouble, just nothing to see here. The fact that this dude wiped all his Steelers stuff from Instagram, apparently, and said, free me, and this comes after a year after on the sidelines while they were beating the Falcons. He had to be talked to by a team captain. I'm not buying it. I'm not believing it. I hope Tomlin doesn't have his head in the sand like he has on other issues with these receivers in the past.
See, I don't sense that. I think he'll be on top of it. I just don't think he's going to share what he may say about behind closed doors with that player.
So you're suggesting then he learned from Antonio and Martavis?
I hope. It goes back to the never-ending debate we have, and without an answer as far as I'm concerned. Did his treatment of Antonio get more out of Antonio than anybody else would?
Sure.
Or did he create the monster by letting Antonio become Antonio?
Yeah.
I think it can be both.
But it was always a big issue, you know, and to try and pretend like oh, there's nothing to see here.
A pebble in my shoe.
Come on. Social media is a big deal, whether he wants to acknowledge it or not. And of course we look at it and make stories of it. This guy is using, in a victory, by the way, in a victory, he had a guy, and it reminds me of Mike Wallace, too. I told you about that Kansas City game. I go in, they won the game. It was an ugly game, like 15-13, and he's all pissed off. Like, wait, you just won. I never think that that's a great sign.
It's not.
Tomlin obviously does. Hey, he wants to be a significant part of the winning. How about winning when he's not a significant part? Is he okay with that?
Well, then,
Are we allowed to ask that question?
Yeah, then where's the mindset? He wants to be a significant part of winning, or he just wants to be a significant part, period?
Yeah,
and once he's not.
That's
I'm
fair. That's
absolutely
fair.
convinced there's guys out there that would rather have gaudy stats and lose than have no stats
You're
and
probably
win.
right.
I have no doubt that there's guys that do that. And I'm not saying that's Pickens.
No,
yet.
I've got zero problem with that. That's human. That's the human condition. But you don't make a public plea of it necessarily, or a public scene of it. Yeah, I could see a lot of people, including myself, going home after a game and saying, "Man, that sucked.
They won without
I'm
me.
glad we won, but they basically won without me. I didn't do anything, contribute anything to the win." That's different than telling the whole world to free me and disassociating myself with the organization, or screaming on the sidelines to the point where a team captain during a win against Atlanta has to come up to you and talk to you. Or Allen Robinson. We're communicating with George on a regular basis. How about George just prepares for the games, okay? And then does his best to win and keeps his feet in bounds in the end zone and gets a touchdown.
How
about that while he's 22 years old? And we worry about the other stuff when he's 25. You know? But nothing to see here, I guess.
I couldn't agree more. Pebble in my shoe.
All right. Bolsey, any take on that?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, we don't know if that's how Pickens truly feels, that he'd rather have the numbers, doesn't really care about wins. But, man, whenever you act like that, it makes you question it, you know?
And I wish somebody had remembered, yes, like the Martavis thing. It's hard to think in the moment, but a good follow-up might have been, Mike, you say that we look at social media and basically you're saying blow it way out of proportion. But there was that nationally televised game against the Lions when Martavis Bryant was specifically suspended for social media behavior. So you can understand why we look at it very closely. You've suspended players in the past because of it.
And also, he is the coach that should know more than maybe any other coach out there that this kind of situation can get worse.
Can develop.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.